afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Build. I'm your host, Carrie Justick. Today, I'll be sitting down with the notorious face of Dance Moms, Abby Lee Miller, who immediately made waves when the show first aired in 2011. But beyond being a target of critics who saw the dance instructor as nothing more than a bully to children on TV, Abby has had a difficult life. After several seasons of the show, Abby ended up spending some time in prison before later being diagnosed with cancer. Still, the 54-year-old persevered and made her return to television with season 8 of Dance Moms, featuring an entirely new cast. Let's take a look.
Congratulations.
Guys, what are you?
Gonna give me a hug?
Yes. So great.
And Gianna and I both want to commend you all. That was an outstanding performance. You did it. You are the national champions. Brady, my God.
This is the first time I've cried this season.
A year ago, I was laying in a hospital bed, getting chemotherapy pumped through my body. And I was pretty much dead. People counted me out. I don't think any of you realize the magnitude of what I have been through in the last 18 months. But I think God had a plan, and I think that I was supposed to live. And I know that I'm supposed to teach children, and I know that I'm supposed to be involved in dance. I think I proved to myself and to the world that I could put a dance out on that stage week after week after week. That I could take kids to nationals and come out on top and come out winning. I've done it before, and I'd like to do it again.
So you came out of all of this?
I came out of all this. I'm in New York City. My kids just won a national competition. It was amazing. We have a room full of tears, and we should be happy and celebrating.
So let's celebrate!
So I think it's time to take on more challenges. Dance is constantly changing art form. It's constantly evolving. And I want to continue to be part of that. I'm just getting started. So now, the sky's the limit.
Abby Lee Miller, everybody. I mean, what an emotional scene. I think you kind of addressing how far you've come, everything you've been through, is a really surprising thing for me to watch, for anybody to watch, because I feel like so much has happened in such little time. Have you even been able to process it?
Yes, it seems like forever for me.
Yeah.
It's relatively short, but when you're living it day to day, it drags on. Yes.
So what did this season of Dance Moms mean to you?
It meant a lot to me. I had a 4-year contract with a 4-year option for Lifetime, with Lifetime. So it was maybe the end. Who knows? I wanted to prove that I could go back into a studio. When I am in the studio and I'm teaching, and it may seem impossible to the general public, but that's where I'm in my zone. Mm-hmm. And I forget everything else. When I watch the show, I always think, there were 27 crew members in there, and nobody could pull my shirt down. Nobody could fix my wig. Like, come on. And then I'm in front of 50 feet of mirrors, but I never look at myself. Mm-hmm. I only see the children. I see their mistakes. I see what they're doing. And I get into a zone, and I forget that I'm in a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. I forget that I was battling cancer, and people have chemo, they go, they sit in a chair, they get it, they leave. These were bags that were huge, and they were 24-hour bags. They were 5 days straight, then a spinal tap with a needle this big that goes into your spine and separate, different places, and they take out your spinal cord fluid, and then they put in chemotherapy, and then a lumbar injection that goes in your tailbone up to your brain, around the brain cavity. So this was heavy-duty chemo. This was intense. It was poison in my body. And then I would leave the hospital and I would go straight to the physical therapy institute that I absolutely loved. And I was lethargic. I was too sick to do the therapy. Mm-hmm. and everybody had to put a whole mask and a suit and everything on like they were going on a spaceship to come into my room to even work with me. I didn't get to go to the gym with everybody else. I didn't, I had to learn to pick a fork up again. I should have maybe not learned that. I needed to learn to brush my teeth and write my name. When I would write my signature on papers you kept signing, I didn't even recognize my signature. That stuff was scary. Yes.
And so when was the moment that you realized it was kind of time for you to go back into the studio to start teaching kids again? Like, when did you even realize you were able to do that again?
I didn't know if I was able or not. It was my attorney who called and said, "You're starting January 26th in Pittsburgh." And that was crazy. Going back, it was January. It's 20 below zero outside. I'm in a wheelchair. It was my first, time back in the studio to actually teach. And these kids, it was a new team. So the kids auditioned. They auditioned in LA, and I did see them at the audition. I had a bigger role in the casting portion of the show, which I never did before because the kids never auditioned for the show. The original cast didn't audition. They sat in a chair next to their mother, and they were put on camera because the show was to be 80% the moms, 10% the kids, and 10% the dancing. I was never even on the show at the beginning. It wasn't until there was an incident in the studio, and I called the police, and they, answered the phone, and it was the dispatcher, and he said, "Officer Broadway, what's your emergency?" And I said, "Is this really happening?" And then, he said, I explained there was a woman. She was psycho, running around the studio chasing me and chasing the children and scaring everybody. "I want her out. Come get her. It's my building. It's my property. Get her off." And he said, "Does she have any weapons?" And I said, "Just her mouth." And it was that footage that got back to Lifetime. And then suddenly I was on a show, and suddenly the whole world changed.
You accidentally became the star of Dance Moms.
Yes. I think some mothers would differ. Their opinion would differ, but yes, let's go with it. Sure.
And obviously, like we mentioned, it's a whole new cast. And I mean, nobody doesn't know who Abby Lee Miller is, and especially in the dance world. I'm sure these dancers, their parents, they all knew something about you.
Well, the kids watched the show.
Yeah.
Since they were teeny tiny, they've been watching the show. And they're all incredibly talented. Some more in lyrical or some more in jazz or hip hop. But the kids are great. They knew what they were getting into. They knew what they signed up for. Two of the moms own studios. And one is a dance teacher as well. And I never heard of any of them before the show. And I know I have friends all over the world that own studios and that are dance teachers that are brilliant. But anywho, moving on, they're lovely women. And so the kids were eager to dance. When I gave them an Abby Lee Dance Company sweatshirt, they were thrilled. They were thankful. They were grateful. They wanted to be part of the team. And that was such a difference from season 7 and season 6 even. And they were hungry. They wanted my corrections. And so that made it enjoyable. The mothers, not so much. But the kids, they loved being in the studio. They loved going to the competitions. And the funny thing is, on the bus traveling, which is like the worst part of the show, on the bus traveling week after week to each competition, I hear my voice behind me all the time because they are watching every episode of Dance Moms over and over and over, which shows you they're smart because they were learning from everybody else's mistakes. Yeah. They applied those corrections to themselves.
So how did that change your role even as their instructor? Because you're going into this room and they're looking at you like more of a celebrity, I'm assuming, they know who you are. So what kind of how do they treat you, or what kind of preconceived notions did they have of you?
Well, no, the kids were fine. They were ready for it. They know about the tough love and that I'm a strict teacher, but they came from strict teachers. So that was all fine. I don't think they were used to the cameras. In their way, you're doing a round off back handspring at somebody with the camera and they don't move. Just move out of the way. When you see someone flipping at you, move. And then they weren't used to their mothers coming in and interrupting me and fighting with their dance teacher.
Oh, I'm sure they saw a whole different side of their moms.
Some of them didn't know their mothers had their boobs done and their this and that. And I was like, how do you not know that? They had no idea. They were like, what? So then there was a lot of, they're just tweens, like they're at that younger age. So there was a lot of mother-daughter talks and son-mother talks throughout the season because I, let the cat out of the bag all the time.
Oh my goodness. I mean, obviously, when we're talking about the cast of Dance Moms, we have to talk about some of the incredible...
We don't have to. We don't have to talk at all.
I mean, you went to Jojo Siwa's
I did.
last night.
Yes.
What is it like to see these girls who have just taken off since being under your wing?
Jojo was always a huge personality. She started on Abby's Ultimate Dance Competition, and it was a television show. And I would always try to rein her in and like, pull it back, sweetie, pull it back. It's a camera. It's not a live theater. So I think her performing live in an arena for 5,000 people and, up to 14,000 attendees, I think she's fabulous. And, Jojo is a hard-working kid. Mm-hmm. She goes into the meetings with Nickelodeon. She goes into the meetings with the different vendors. She used to do her YouTube thing. She started with JoJo's Juice, and she wanted to pour juice on me, and I was like, no, that is never going to happen. And I thought it was the most ridiculous thing in the world. And now she makes all this money she was pouring juice on people, and now we do other things. I taught her to drive and a dance lesson here and there. And so she does it herself. Mom and dad are not pushing. Mom and dad are not guiding. Mom and dad they are there. They work for her now. Mm-hmm. It's the way it should be in the world.
What is she, 16? Right?
Yes. And she employs, I think there were close to 100 people on that crew, like working. That's a lot of jobs. That's amazing. If I could go back in time and work until I was 18 and then never have to work again, are you kidding me? That's the way to do it. Kids, get out, start working, let's go.
Do you think any of your tough love is part of the reason why these girls know? I mean, I feel like they all advocate for themselves. They've all, like you said, they're the ones running their businesses.
Well, I think they knew I started my competition team at 14. Mm-hmm. That's ingrained in their heads. And they learned a lot how to put a show on. Some of them were actually in my recital or dance concerts in Pittsburgh back in the day when we were shooting some of the early seasons. They learned how to do it. You need your red, white, and blue All-American number. You need your sassy jazz number. You need to slow it down. Jojo sat at the piano. She slowed the whole room down. You need to do that within a show. And those kids learned that. Mm-hmm. And they learned a lot. From table manners that Jojo mentioned last night to just etiquette. When you walk into a room and you introduce yourself, you look somebody in the eye, you shake their hand firmly. You want to make sure they know your name. Mm-hmm. And that's with everything. You only get one first impression in life. And I taught those kids that. So every time Jojo walks into that room at Nick or whoever, and she walks in and she's like, I want this, or I need a bigger budget, or I want to do a new song, she's in charge of that meeting. And I love that. And I love that I played a role in her life. Yes.
That's incredible. Going back to...
If you say one more time.
Oh, and now I'm getting the Abby Lee Miller treatment.
I didn't say it the first 3 times, but I had to say it. Go ahead.
So going back to the past few years for you, I mean, you still, through everything, have been in the public eye.
That's good.
Which is not new to you. You have been.
I was always a star in my own life, or my own world, my own mind, even when I was a little kid. So
what did it feel like, though, when you were going through more hard times, more difficult times?
Well, it was horrible. Mm-hmm. Horrible. It was, some of it wasn't funny, but now that I look back on it, and my attorneys in Pittsburgh would say, does this suit look all right? You think this suit's okay for court today? Like, there's going to be cameras. So they were a little tense because they don't live in that world. Mm-hmm. They're criminal defense attorneys. They're in Pittsburgh. That's not, they were crazy when.
They wanted to make sure they were looking
good
for camera.
Yes. Yes. And so instead of them telling the client what to wear to court, I was telling them what to wear to court. And, it was a strange thing. And I could talk for days about our prison reform system. Can Kim Kardashian call me, please? Please. Can someone get a message to her? I have so much to tell her. It is absolutely insane. And I don't want to bore your audience with all that, but,
What would
you
be
can see
what would
what
be
I
your
pay in
biggest
taxes when I'm working and I'm out in the world. And then when you go there, you make 27 cents an hour. And I didn't even get that. I just donated it back. So it's crazy. I laid in the sun. I read 150 books. I lost 127 pounds that I gained back sitting in this chair. And you get to work on yourself. You do. I would never have lost that weight outside in the public because I'm running and working, and unless you have a private chef. And the food was so bad. It was disgusting. And, I exercised what I could I had a bad knee. So, it is what it is. But there's a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder. I didn't fight in a war like my dad did, and I didn't go through what other people have gone through, but I hear somebody with keys or a door slam, and I just jump out of my skin because you just never know. And it wasn't the girls. The girls were wonderful, the women, I should say, that I met, some of the most intelligent, kind people. When I first got there, they didn't have shoes. And it was just this whole rigmarole. And somebody who had been in there for years and years and years took her brand new shoes that she had worked so hard for to earn the money to buy, to order these shoes, and waited for months for them to come in, took them right off her feet and gave them to me. And I thought to myself, there is not one of those dance moms from that original cast that would give me a dime, let alone the shoes off their own feet. And here's a perfect stranger, and they were wonderful. Yeah. The guards, not so much.
Well, I know you've been very open about your experience there, and now
You want names?
And now I'm sure people are also asking you a million times because we know some other big names.
Yes.
That will be headed in that direction.
But it's different because a guard literally said to me, "You're not going to talk." I didn't even say anything to her. I was just passing. What did you say? You're not going to talk to me like you talk to those kids on TV. Like, they couldn't separate a reality TV show from me being there. It was awful. But some of those women are on great shows that we loved, and they're entertaining, and they're real actresses. It wasn't reality. So they're going to ask them, what's it like to live with John Stamos? What's it like to, all those things? And they're going to have a million best friends. Felicity's going to be there just enough time to get all the material she needs for a fabulous movie.
Well, I was going to say, even you looking back at it, you seem to reflect on it fondly.
No, I don't. Of course, the doctor there took me off of my thyroid medication and my diabetes medication cold turkey.
Yeah.
Look at the result. Look at what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that quote? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I was out 2 months later, and 5 days went by, and I had a pain in my neck and was paralyzed from the neck down 10 days later. So something went wrong in my body. And the big misdiagnosis, or whatever you want to call it, is that I was in a thyroid storm because my blood work was so crazy, so erratic. And if they would have just done their jobs, let's say, they would have found out it was cancer and a very rare form, Burkitt lymphoma.
Maybe we should connect you with Kim Kardashian.
I think
How do we
so.
make that happen?
I'll forgive you all your ums if you make that happen.
I'll do what I can. There we go. But now, after the fact, after being in prison, after your diagnosis, have people treated you differently?
No, I think I've changed in a way that I say thank you a million times a day. I could have been an advocate for women in prison. That was my goal. I came out of prison 127 pounds lighter, tan, healthy, my teeth, you can brush your teeth for 45 minutes a day. It was fabulous. And then I was ready to set the world on fire. I was gonna have a nip and a tuck and a this and a that, and I was ready to go and live the life that I never got to live for myself instead of somebody else's child. And then I got a pain in the neck, and it all just spiraled out of control. So, you know, I think that now I can be an advocate for people in a wheelchair. You have no idea what it's like to pull up to a door of a hotel that has told you 100 times that they are handicap accessible, and you can't figure out how to get in. We were in a hotel in London, and I had to go around a back alley that was closed off. I had to get in this little metal crate and go up, and then you needed a key to make it work and a key to get in the door, but the key was in the hotel, and there were steps up the front. It was absolutely impossible, and how they can advertise that they're handicap accessible when they're not. Just the streets in LA, I'm wheeling down the sidewalk, and the trees have roots that have crumbled the sidewalk. It's ridiculous, and you have to stop, turn around, go all the way back to the end, drop off the curb, cross the street, and go on the other side, and then you hit the same thing. So I never realized how difficult it is for people that are handicapped, and I have a whole, I mean, more than a new respect. It's compassion. It's horrible, and our country needs to do more about it. The whole ADA thing is very, sketchy.
Well, I love how you've also used your social media you're very real on there, and you show what it takes and what you go through in terms of physical therapy and taking steps and doing different workouts and everything to rehabilitate yourself. What kind of response have you gotten to that?
I think the response has been good. It's exciting, but every day is different. I can go in one day and I've walked up to 50 steps with a walker. And then other day, you could go the next day and it's hard to take 2 steps. It just depends on your body and the day, the time of the day, what happened before you got there, what's gonna happen that evening. It's crazy. I just know that I know in my heart and I know in my brain, if one of the 6 doctors I went to previously in this 10-day, time frame, if they would have just done their jobs, I wouldn't be in this wheelchair, because they would have caught the cancer, they would have started the chemo before the infection choked my spinal cord. That's what happened. I laid there. My friend is here today. She sat in that hospital room and watched me become paralyzed from the neck down. And people walk by and say, "It's not our patient. Oh, that's not our patient. Sorry." Come in and put the tray of food 20 feet away from me. Thinking, how is she gonna get that? How do you expect her to eat that? It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. But
yeah, the healthcare system has to change. The prison system has to change. The healthcare system has to change. And our society for handicapped people has to change.
Definitely. And
yes.
You're using your voice to do that. So hopefully. Some change will
hopefully. Come. I do. I hope to be able to help people in the future. And I know that I can help kids achieve their dreams. I know I can help kids become better dancers, better singers, better actors. I can do that. That's done. That's it. I can do that. All right? Let's try to help some other people that need it.
On to the next. Well, we're going to hand it over to audience Q&A. We have 2 questions for you. The first one right up here.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Manu.
Manu?
Yeah, Manu.
Manu.
M-A-N-E, yes. So my question is, when did you first realize that the show went viral? And when did you realize, wow, this could be a thing and that people would watch it and all?
I still can't believe people watch it. When it first started, we started shooting in April. We went live, it started to air in July, and we were out of town. And we all went to this restaurant bar that had a bunch of TVs in Las Vegas, and we were watching it, and I was like, well, this is the end of this. And it was so bad because the editors didn't edit the dancing well. And I'm thinking, here I am, a dance teacher, and I'm teaching this on camera. It's a well, I thought it was a dance show. And then they don't have me come to the editing booth and sit next to somebody and say, whoa, 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 whoa. Those two steps can't go together. No, 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 no. And then the music that we would use, they would change it in post. So choreographically, you're back against the wall, right, is the lyric in the song. So I have a child, they're turning around and they're doing this big arch back thing, and the back of the costume's pretty. Then they edit it and they flip it to different music, and it's talking about, and the world's turning around and the kid's arching back and not turning. And I'm like, what is this? So I used to go ballistic about the editing. And then I had to just stop watching because it made me crazy. I was giving notes, and I see the show when you see the show. They wouldn't even let me, well, because I'm not an executive producer, I never got to see anything. I'm still a little bitter about that. So when it went viral, when I was in New York City and every bus stop had my picture on it.
Oh, gosh.
And then buses would come by and my face was on the side of the bus. I was Carrie Bradshaw. I was like, wow, this is amazing. She got to lay there and be sexy, and I was like, this, the worst picture ever in gray, and it was just, yeah, that was it. When I was on a side of a bus in New York City, I knew, boy, I've made it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are you ever surprised that people are still here for the drama? That they could watch you fight with dance moms all day?
No, because when the show started, that group of kids, they weren't the best kids in my studio. I had other kids, but their mothers were sweet and nice and paid their bills on time. So they didn't make good TV. And I lost a ton of students when the show started because, 4 or 5 get on a TV show and 15 quit in their class because they didn't get on it, or because they didn't think it was a good idea, or because they knew that these particular mothers sat upstairs, ridiculed, made fun of other people's children, for real, and didn't pay their bills, bragged about not paying, were disrespectful to the staff, made fun of our choreography, made fun of the teachers, but they kept bringing their kid every week. And now we were rewarding them and their children. They're gonna get to go to all these places and they're gonna have fun, and people are gonna send them 150 grand to post something on Instagram. And all the wonderful good people that were respectful and paid their bills on time didn't get rewarded.
They don't make good TV.
So it was like a really, I was between a rock and a hard place. And I had students on Broadway already. I had kids performing all over the world. And I am very proud to say that I have had students in 34 Broadway shows here in New York City. Yes. And not only do I have one student, but I have 2 students, and I'm going to see one of them in a few minutes, that are in Steven Spielberg's new West Side Story movie.
Wow.
So, yes.
Woo!
So
that's incredible.
exciting. That's exciting. Not too many dance teachers can say that. None from Pittsburgh, that's for sure.
And then we have one more question in the audience.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm currently a professional dancer, and I'm not booking as many gigs as I thought I would. I'm a great dancer, but I think the reason that I'm not booking it is because
You don't sing?
I'm a deer in headlights in the face.
Oh.
What could you advise on how to fix that?
Okay. Well, you didn't have me as a teacher, number one. That was the first mistake. Secondly, you need to sit in front of a mirror, get a little stand for your phone, videotape yourself, put all different types of music on. Musical theater, fast jazz, traditional Fosse stuff, or Kander and Ebb stuff. Put it on your phone, listen to the music, videotape yourself, and just dance with your face in the mirror. Okay. Do the and stare them down. When you dance, you are not dancing for yourself. You are dancing for people that are buying a ticket to watch you dance, or a ticket to the movie, or a ticket to the cable to watch the TV show. You are dancing for them. And when you walk into the room, like when my kids compete, there's 3 judges. The only people in that building that matter are those 3 judges, not the balcony, not your friends that came, not mom and dad, those 3 judges. And I feel like if you're a deer in the headlights, you're not engaging the people running the audition, the casting director. You're not sucking them in to your performance and making them love you. You need to do that. And don't, if I stare at him and I'm gonna engage him and make him like me, once I've made eye contact and there's something there, I can move on to the next person, to this young lady. I can make her engage me, want me on her team, keep me at the audition, and then I move to the next person. And until you have their attention, you're not gonna book the job. That's what you need. And how many social media followers do you have? Because my students that are here who are working professional dancers, knock on wood, they are now being asked how many followers they have. So when they were graduating seniors in the studio, when the TV show first started, they were like, we don't want to be with those little kids. We don't want anything to do with it. And their parents were like, They should have capitalized on it. They should have come to every one of those competitions. They should have taken all those selfies with those little kids whose numbers grew so quickly, and they should have monopolized on the success of the show. And now they would be able to put like $2 million down and book the job. That's sad. It's sad that our world has come to that because there's a lot of people out there with no talent, none, and they do these ridiculous things, and they have all these followers on YouTube, all the followers on Instagram, when there's really legit kids out there that can sing, that can dance, really dance, and that can act, that are old school, that do it for real, that play several instruments. You know, my friend's son, Mackenzie, he's amazing. He plays all these instruments, he sings, he was Billy Elliot in the West End, he's done all this stuff, but other kids are booking movies and this and that because they have, you know, Instagram followers, or they have YouTube channels and they do all this crazy stuff that is just silly.
Well, I was going to say some of your girls were some of the first influencers, kind of, but talent came first because people saw that on the show. First.
Yeah. And come on, we made some of those kids stars. I did, because if I didn't like your mother, well, I liked your mother, so okay. And all the kids went to school all day back then. They went to all their public schools. So when, you know, a mother was willing to go get their kid out of school at lunch and gym and recess and bring them to the studio, learn half the solo, sneak them back without anybody on the TV show knowing, they learned half their solo. Well, no wonder they won. You know?
Well, now we know all the tricks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us,
Well,
everybody.
thank you for having me at
Abby
Build.
Lee
This
Miller.
is great. Thank you.